And joining us now is the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. They will be hosting the Big Four Classic this upcoming weekend at Pearl. And I speak of head coach Renee Gillispie. Join us, a regular on the show. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Just got done with practice and it's looking good. Beautiful day in Iowa.
Well, let's talk about the fact you're hosting the Big Four for the first time since you've been there at Iowa. What does that mean to you to host, obviously, Iowa State, Northern Iowa? And Drake's really one of the marquee fall weekends of the sport, and you get to host it this weekend.
Yeah, we're excited to have it at home. We'll have a huge crowd this weekend. We've got UNI on Friday, Iowa State on Saturday, and then Drake on Sunday. And then they play each other Saturday and Sunday also. So it's a big crowd. We're looking forward to 9 innings of going at each other and getting all of our players in, and it should be a really good weekend.
Now, as the host, do you have to make sure the food's taken care of with the coaches? I mean, Coach Pinkerton mentioned about a spaghetti place that you know well. I mean, what do we? How does this work when you're hosting here? Any differences? Now, Coach Calvert and Jacobs were very we're not involved in this because we don't want the tab when it's our turn to host.
Yeah, well, Jamie hasn't told me anything yet, so I might have to give him a call and figure out where this is going to be. So he's setting me up for a dinner I don't know about. But yeah, we go so far back, all three of us. I actually coached with Rich at Illinois State, and Jamie and I go back 30 years. So it's pretty neat to have all three of us back together, all four of us back together, and it's always an interesting weekend. We always have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, how important is that? I mean, I know it's an important weekend for everybody because of recruiting standpoint in the state of Iowa. It's big for the state of Iowa. Everybody, all eyes. But it's great. I really enjoy the fact that the four of you all have a great relationship. And really, this is great for the state. It's not, yes, it benefits each individual, but there's a larger gain out of this beyond just each individual institution. This is big for the state.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, you think about how many Iowa players we have on all four of our teams, and we're promoting that. I mean, we go out recruiting and we're all sitting together and we're all looking at the same kids, and we want to make sure that Iowa players are promoted, every year. So it's going to be fun. I mean, like I said, the stands are going to be packed. It's going to be like the Iowa State Championship, when you've got 4,000 people in the stands and all rooting for the softball players. But yeah, it's a big push for us. I can't tell you how many years they've done this. Well, before I even got here at Iowa, they've been doing the Big Four. It's the top 4 Division I programs in Iowa. It's the only Division I programs in Iowa, and so we get a chance to kind of highlight our players and highlight what we have coming up for the spring. So it's exciting. We always have a great time together.
I'm always curious. I've asked the other coaches about this. As you get to this particular weekend, as you circle. Is there a certain point where you want your team to be at a certain point here as you get ready for this competition this weekend, or do you just treat it like another fall weekend?
Yeah, we actually, and we do that for 9 innings. So it's free substitution. It's 9 innings. It's a chance for us to get our players in against some of the top pitchers in the country. You look at UNI was in regionals, and Drake's always competing in the Missouri Valley, and with Iowa State, making the regionals a year ago. I mean, it's fun to be able to have our players go up against some of the top pitchers in the country. And it gives us a chance to see what we're going to have for the spring. So like I said, it's free substitution, 9 innings. We're going to be seeing probably all of our pitchers throwing. And it's just a way of us. I like to see it as a way for us to get all our players in and give them an opportunity against good competition. And I think they take it that same way. I think we played 7 innings last year, but we want to do 9 innings and make it a true scrimmage.
Let's talk about how the fall has gone for you. You got a lot of players coming back. You were so young last year, and I think the youths kind of showed at times during the season. How do you feel about this group most of them having a year under their belt here coming in this fall?
Yeah, we're excited about that. It kind of was interesting last weekend in our scrimmage. We went 10 innings last weekend with Iowa Wesleyan, and it was interesting because we split our team up into 2 groups, a gold and black team, and we draw them out of a hat. So every weekend it's a different group together, whether it's infield or outfield. And it just happened that we had 1 full infield was all freshmen and 1 full infield was all upperclassmen. And it was interesting to see them compete against each other. Our freshmen are coming out and they're pushing our upperclassmen. They're pushing them to get get better every day. And it's a great rivalry. You know, they really do help each other out. They love each other. They're working to make each other better. And so it's a lot of fun to see the freshmen from last year, the struggles that we had last year, and being able to see the freshmen really stepping up and getting excited about this new group of freshmen coming in. And you're just going to see a whole nother team. I mean, you got a whole nother squad coming in. So it'll be fun to watch. And pitching staff were strong. You know, the pitchers are coming through really well for us. You know, had a shutout last weekend. We went 7 perfect innings last Sunday. So it was fun to see that and be able to watch our kids all step up. So yeah, it's a whole new squad. They've got new vision, new goals, and it's exciting to see what's going to happen.
Let's keep it on the pitching staff, since obviously that's always a big part. Tell us about the staff this year. You got a lot of returners coming back, some new faces. Tell us about the staff.
Yeah, well, you got Bree as our senior. You know, she came in from UCF a year ago, and she's just our leader on the mound. You know, she kind of brings everybody in and gets them all on the same page, and she's been doing really well. She's got a lot of confidence back and really leading the pack right now. You got Denali back on the mound. She's really stepping up as a leader. She hits and plays first base, so she's so versatile with everything that she does. Then you have you know, Kat did a great job towards the end of the season. She was only a freshman last year, came back at the end of the season, did a great job against the last 2 teams that we had, really stepped up as a freshman last year. So she's been really doing a really good job this fall, seeing a lot of good outings from her. Then we've got Emma, who's from Indiana. She pitched quite a few innings last year. She had probably one of the best innings we had against Oklahoma. You know, when she had a chance to get in, she actually did a nice job on the Oklahoma series. So she stepped up also, really seeing some good things from her in the process. I think you see Sterling is a young lefty freshman pitcher that's coming in. She's an Iowa girl, doing some good things. Just neat having the lefty, you know, finally having a lefty on our staff. You know, seeing her coming in this year and kind of stepping in where Lauren Shaw, you know, she transferred from UCLA. So now we're getting another lefty in the lineup. And then looking at Devin coming in from California, freshman last year, had a rough go in the early part of the fall, but came in and really saw some good innings towards the end of the season last year. And then who am I missing?
You got Marin, the transfer from Baylor.
Yeah, so Marin transferred from Baylor, and she had some good outings from Baylor coming in as a junior. Another Iowa player. She has some wicked movement on her pitches. I'm excited to see her getting in and being able to just see what she has. But then you look at two other players that we have. One from Florida, Kelsey, you know, came in as a freshman also. You're seeing she has a nasty changeup, a lot of movement on her pitches, looks a lot different than all the other kids. And then Jalen, also a freshman coming in from Iowa, won the state tournament 2 years ago, was runner up this last year. And she's actually probably stepped up and seeing one of the top 3 spots right now as a freshman. She's really been doing well for us.
That's a deep staff, and you're going to have some brand new coach to coach them up on the staff. Coach Dillinger retiring after the season last season. A great career for Coach Dillinger, who you've obviously known most of your entire life. He coached you when you were a player, and you learned a lot from him. And then you bring in a new coach there to run the pitching staff. Just take us through that process, because obviously you got Coach Prater, who now is the head coach at Campbell. Coach Dillinger retiring. You bring in Coach Levin and then you bring in obviously Coach Gardner to run the pitching staff.
Yeah, Coach Levan from Southern Miss has really stepped up as a hitting coach and infield coach. He was a great find, because as a head coach, he was able to come in and kind of take a role that was a huge role for us in the hitting. You know, hitting's always been kind of our nemesis. You know, we've had good pitching and really working on the offensive side of our game. So he's come in and he actually has his grandkids. His daughter lives in Solon and the son's now living in Dubuque, and he's got 2 grandkids that are living in Solon. So grandpa get a lot of chance to hang out with his grandkids, and it's really cute to see them together. So we were very fortunate to be able to get him in and become our assistant coach here at Iowa. And then Amanda Gardner. Mandy does an incredible job. She's coming in. She was started at Michigan for 2 years. So she was actually at UCF, played against us her years at Michigan. And then she was transferred to Maryland and finished at Maryland, and then coached there a year, and then was at Grand Canyon University for about 4 or 5 years. And then we got her in from University of California, San Diego. Just a lot of energy, just love what she's doing with our pitching, really pushing them, getting them on board, allowing them to call their own game, which we've been really focusing on, is helping our battery really step up and learn the game and understand what they're trying to do. So it's been fun to see such a young staff being able to come up and do some good things for us. But yeah, it's a great staff. I'm so blessed to have both of them. And Aaron's back. Aaron Johnson was our outfield coach last year. She's taken over catching this year. And the staff is just, it's great to see Rick being able to get a chance to retire. He's done so much for us. It was a huge loss to see him, leave us this last year, but I know that he has, great things ahead of him, and we just really missed him. We didn't know that was going to be a hard place to replace him. He was a tough one because he did such a great job for us. And then, like you said, with Trina being able to get the head coaching job at Campbell, filling in that spot with Brian was huge. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. A lot of energy, a lot of excitement, new goals, new expectations, and it's gonna be fun to get on board and head into the spring.
You kind of alluded to it. I was fascinated because I've known your style for a long time. We'll just leave it as that. We don't need to mention how many years we've known each other.
I'm a pitching coach. What do you expect?
but that's your pedigree. You've developed so many great pitchers, but your style is unique in that you love pitchers to be involved and call their own game. And you're also okay with others calling pitches. So I'm curious, and Mandy Gardner and her style with your style, take me through that dynamic as you got to know each other, and as how she gets to learn your players that she's inheriting, and the players get to learn her.
Yeah, it really was, on the interview, it was neat because I asked some questions about how she likes to coach her pitchers and what she looked for. And it was neat because I was excited to see a pitching coach that had the same philosophy that I did. She loved being a pitcher that wanted to call the game. She loved had a battery where a catcher could call her game and know what page she was on and be right on the money with what she was going to call next. And so she has that same philosophy. She wants them to be able to call their own game. Now she's calling the game, and we've gone through so far, the three games so far this season, and we've done it both ways. So we started calling, so they learn the signs. We're getting them to understand kind of our philosophy and what we want out of it. Mandy does a good job of kind of giving them the reins to be able to shake it off if they want to. And then we ask why we shook it off and what we were looking for. And it's all part of the learning process. So they're really stepping up. The catchers on the same way. They're really stepping up and getting excited about learning all the different pitchers and what they want, what their go-to pitches are. Because we got a big staff, and that's what's really neat to be able to see the catchers wanting to learn each of the pitchers, basically how they want to set up the batters, how they want to go after the hitters. So it was neat to see how they did that and how the pitchers are really stepping up. The catchers now are stepping up and wanting to call the game. So this last game, we had them call their own game, and they really did a wonderful job with it. We talked to them about, kind of what our philosophy is, kind of went through the batters, let them understand kind of how we're going to go after each of the batters. And then they did a great job. You look at like we said, the first 7 innings of the game was a perfect game. The pitcher stepped up and did what they needed to do. So we have a lot of high hopes. We'll be probably calling during the season, but it's given them the understanding that they're okay to call it off. They're okay to throw a pitch that they feel more confident with it, and give them a little bit more, ownership of the game. And that's what we're looking for.
You mentioned Brian taking over the offense. What does he inherit? Talk about some of the returners that will lead your leaders on the offensive side, and some new faces you think will add to the offense.
Yeah, Brian's done a fantastic job coming in right away and setting up the philosophy for hitting. And again, it's like finding coaches that understand kind of what you want as a head coach, what your philosophy is. And we had a good base. The freshman coming in was a great opportunity for Brian to kind of take the new kids and kind of run with them and kind of get them on board quickly. And then our upperclassmen just really stepped up and is starting to buy into the philosophy. We're seeing some unbelievable. If you're looking at scores, it's ridiculous right now. You're really seeing them confident now and relaxed and understanding what they're looking for their at-bats. That part has been really fun to watch. And so you got some big hitters. I mean, I looked at Nally last year. She's always solid. Nia and Briley, always consistent in the 1-2 spot. They're still just really ripping it up right now, doing a great job. You've got Kelsey that came in from Florida. She's got a big stick. You got Emma and Anna Henderson from Indiana. Both of them are really stepping up and seeing some big hits all season long so far. I'm trying to think who else we have on that lineup as far as the big hitters.
Well, let me ask you about Denali, because you use her as a pitcher and as a bat. And I know you've got plenty of experience with two-way players. How do you manage that as far as her importance to the pitching staff, but at the same time, she's a big part of your bat. She's all Big Ten hitter, all Big Ten performer, and protecting her in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's neat right now, because you look at Emma and Anna and Kelsey and Tristan. You know, I didn't have Tristan in that. Tristan, big time hitter from Fort Dodge. They're all in there to protect her now this year. You know, we didn't have that last year, so being able to surround her by big bats right now is going to be huge. And looking at our pitching staff right now, out of the pitchers we have, 3/4 of them all hit. You know, and they're big long ball hitters. So depending on who's going to be on the mound, you know, we could have another pitcher in the lineup as far as a DP in that position. Denali can play first base, so if she's not pitching, she can look at first base, and we've got some versatility on that side of it with our pitchers and first basemen. But yeah, I mean, she's going to have a great opportunity to have some front side and back side to be able to protect her this year.
Well, and you got players like Burns and Carter too, like you mentioned, coming back to help the offense there.
Yeah.
Moss. But it sounds like you have some versatility that you haven't had before. I know that was one of the things you had to kind of work on from a recruiting standpoint. That it takes time, which is, you know, trying to find versatility on a roster, which you haven't had in the past.
Yeah. And that is it. I mean, our freshmen, when you talk about a couple players coming in from Iowa, you know, Tristan. She has, as from Fort Dodge, you got Jalen coming in as a pitcher and a hitter. You know, she's done a great job and, you know, led her conference in hits in her junior and senior year. And then you've got Tori Bennett that's coming in, does a great job at third base, and she's a solid hitter. You know, she's hard to get out at the plate. Anna Streff, right here in town. You know, I don't know that she struck out one time all season so far this season. I mean, she's just a hard out. She gets those singles and doubles, and she always finds a way to move runners, and she does the little things right. Now we've got the freshman class is the one that's really fun to watch. Even Sterling as a pitcher, she hits too, and she's got speed on the bases. So it's going to be fun. You know, this weekend is going to be interesting to see how who's going to step up. I think Friday's game, we're going to do a little bit of all the pitchers are throwing, and we'll start, you know, figuring out who we want to the starting lineup this weekend, but then see who's stepping up, who's going to be first off the bench, who's going to be, you know, first pitcher, first hitter off the bench. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to kind of see who's stepping up and doing the job for us this weekend.
Do you feel you have enough speed? I know that's something also you've been working on with recruiting, trying to get more athletic, more faster on the base pads and be aggressive there, kind of like your UCF teams that made the NCAAs.
Yeah, couple ones to look at right now is you got Echo coming in from Arizona. She's done a great job in the outfield, and she's got unbelievable. She's a slapper, puts the ball in play, great on the bases. Sterling's one of those also. She can play the outfield, got a lot of speed on the bases. Bailey right now, she's a local kid out of Clear Creek, Amana, you know, and she's been putting the ball in play, and anytime we have a pinch hit position, she's the one running out there and getting that position. And then Avery, you know, we hadn't even talked about Avery. She's kind of locked down the shortstop position. She's a hitter, but she's got unbelievable speed. So I think what we put in the freshman class right now, we probably have 5 strong freshmen that have the speed, like you talked about, that we used to have at UCF, that can run and gun. We probably have 5 of the freshmen right now that gave us more speed than we ever had. Tatiana's transfer that came in, keep an eye on her, outfielder, does a great job with chop slap and put the ball in play, getting on. So yeah, you're looking at some good speed finally this year.
Tell me about Brian's philosophy offensively, because I know that was something that stood out to you that he will bring to the program.
Yeah, I think he wants them to hit. You know, his philosophy is is being able to do the little things right. Get on, move the runners, score them. I mean, it's just the basic philosophy of softball or baseball. And he really drives them to understand the importance of being a team, being able to do the little things right, lay down the bunt if we need to. I don't know that he likes a bunt as much as I do, which is okay, but we'll work on that. It'll depend on how much speed we're going to have, and if we've got the slappers in the lineup or we have the big ball hitters in the lineup. But I think that speed is really going to help us this year. We just didn't have that opportunity to move runners as much as we did, and I think you'll see that this fall. A lot of our fall games, we do a lot more stealing bases, a lot more hitting. Yeah.
You were one of the first programs to announce your schedule for 2023. I think it's become consistent every year. You kind of get that out of the way right away quickly. What stood out to me, obviously, you're going to open the season in Boca, the Boca Raton tournament against FAU. And obviously, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. Obviously, Coach Joyce passing away. You and her go way back to the days, those great rivalry games with UCF, FAU, going back to the A Sundays. How strange is that going to be for you to be back in a familiar place in Boca Raton, which you've had some of your most meaningful wins of your career there, but Joan won't be there, obviously, and I'm sure they're going to be honoring her that weekend.
It's really hard because we scheduled that so that we'd be going against Joan. It's when we do our schedule, it's usually 2 years out, and we had hoped to be able to go back down there and to see her and be a part of her. She's always been such a huge impact on my life as a coach. And like you said, we've had incredible conference championships down there. We've had some incredible games down there. And, Joan always gives us a great game every time we go down and play them. So it's going to be a little odd. It's hard to lose her as much as she's meant to our program and to, softball as a whole. She was something special. So I'm glad we'll be down there for the honoring of her. I think that's going to be nice to have our players a part of that. Yeah,
Jordan Clark, of course, is the new head coach there. She was the assistant at Ohio State, so you're familiar with her, obviously, from the Big Ten days. But are you going to offer her any advice after that weekend as far as, coaching in the state there with following Coach Joyce, following a legend? Like, you don't follow a coach like that. You almost have to be your own person, correct?
You do. You absolutely do. And she knows that. I mean, she's been with some top programs all through her career. So she's going to do a wonderful job down there. It'll be nice to be able to get down there, but yeah, seriously, no advice on her. She's going to, we're going to make sure that
after the weekend, I said, after you play,
weekend, okay.
After your weekend. I'm not saying do it before, after you shake hands, last game. Hey, just, if you need it, there you go.
Yeah, I gotcha. No, I think she's going to do a great job down there. Absolutely great job. And she's got so many incredible Florida players to pick from down there. She's going to have a lot of fun doing recruiting in Florida.
Your schedule, obviously, it's very strong. You go ACC Big Ten Challenge. You've got Syracuse and NC State. You're going to Palm Springs for Mary Nutter. That's big deal there. When you're playing in that tournament, you're going to face top competition. No different there. You're playing in Conway, Arkansas, Madeira Beach, we've become familiar with, and Tampa, Florida. You'll be visiting your old buddy Ken Erickson there as part of that tournament, which includes Texas. You're clearly like to build your schedule to have you ready for conference play, and this definitely accomplishes that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Facing UCLA and Oregon State and Texas, I mean, we're getting our schedule for our players to understand what that next step looks like. We've been building over 4 years. COVID doesn't help anybody. We all kind of were in that same situation. And so we kind of had to step back with all that and then be able to rebuild this program, get some freshmen in that are excited about, Iowa and getting into the top 25 in the country. And that's always our goal, is to be in the top 25, get the chance to be in the national championship venue, so being able to go up against Texas, at UCLA, Oregon State, some of those top programs is going to help us get there.
UCLA, future Big Ten opponent for a conference game. It's still kind of weird to say, but it's going to happen in a couple of years. But it's kind of funny there. You don't play Michigan on the schedule, but obviously the big story in the league, no Hutch. She decided to retire abruptly, as typical Hutch style, just kind of quietly in some random day in August on a Wednesday. What was your reaction when you heard that news? And obviously Bonnie Toll taking over that program. Yeah,
well, Bonnie will do an incredible job, and she'll keep the Michigan expectations high because Hutch, she's a legend, and every coach that's ever coached probably had some experience with Hutch on helping us coach, helping us get on board, teaching us the ways of softball world. And I'm excited for her. I think retirement is going to be exciting for her. I know she's going to stay involved. She's not going to get out of it, so she'll be involved. She'll be in a leadership role. She'll be able to still be a part of Michigan and part of the leadership side of it. Which, I mean, like Gail Blevins at Iowa, she's still doing that. She's still, and Sue Inquist at UCLA, the great coaches stay in it. The great coaches continue to give back. And I know Hutch will do the same thing at Michigan.
I wonder, as all you as a staff, coaching staff, did you sense some pride last season? I mean, had a great year in the making the NCAA tournaments with the number of at-large teams you got in, Northwestern getting to the World Series. I think you had like 7 bids in. Because I remember there was a chip on the shoulder and talking to some coaches in the league about what had transpired years earlier. Obviously, your situation included, you were finishing 4th in 2021, didn't get in part because you weren't allowed to play, obviously, a non-conference schedule, which hurt your RPI, which we don't want to dive into it because we spent a lot of time on that. But was there a sense of pride in the league about respect last year with the performance you did to the point where you got rewarded with the bids that you did in the NCAAs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a little bit of realization that we should have had more the year before. There should have been at least deserving, Indiana, Illinois, finished strong and didn't get in. I think there should have been at least 5, maybe 6 the year before. So it's good to see that the Big Ten is strong and deserves to have that many teams in this year. You just want it to be consistent. You want the committee to have the best teams in there. Big Ten's always striving to do what SEC does. Get everybody in. That's your goal. You want to be that powerhouse. And so, as coaches and as a Big Ten conference, your focus is to do that. Your focus is to have a winning record, be able to play some of the top competitions in the country, being able to have the opportunity to move on and get into regional. So you look at Rutgers is stepping up. They're doing a great job of getting some big wins. Maryland had some big wins last year. You're looking at Penn State being able to, they had some huge wins last year. So you're seeing, as a conference as a whole, we're all on board with this. We're all on board with making sure that we're a powerhouse conference overall, not just the top 5, top 6, but to have it overall, that we deserve to have everybody in there, and we're doing our part to make sure that's working.
Yeah, and Sharonda McDonald takes over Michigan State, leaving Campbell. That's how Coach Prater ends up going to Campbell, ironically enough. But you got Sharonda taking over Michigan State. You mentioned the improvements in the other leagues. The top to bottom every weekend now, it's really tough. It's very on a weekly basis, and there's no reason why the Big Ten can't continue the amount of success they built from last year. And that's got to give you all some confidence too that we could be in those shoes too. We were there 2 years ago, and now with a year experience, you could be in that position.
Oh yeah, that's always our goal, and the players' mission is that to win a Big Ten championship. If you're not in it for that, then we shouldn't be in it at all. So that's got to be our focus. And with UCLA coming in 2024, and who knows where everything's going to lay in the next couple of years. It could be a totally different conference setting. So we have no idea. All we can do is what we can do today, and focus on our players now. And with name, image, and likeness and everything else is going on, it's a crazy world out there. And you just stay focused on what you can do for your players and continue to take one step at a time.
Well, it's a nice trip to California. You'll get a chance to do every so often there. And look, when you bring in a brand like UCLA for softball, I mean, that's huge for the Big Ten. And obviously they just signed a big TV contract, so a lot of a media rights deal there. But UCLA in a couple of years to join the league, that's more eyeballs are going to be on the league than maybe ever before for softball.
Yeah, I had to feel sorry for UCLA and all the travel they have to do, but it is. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see what happens and where everything settles in. I mean, I don't think that we've even touched it yet as far as where all the conference is going to be settling in the next couple of years. So so it's going to be exciting to have UCLA on board. We're really excited to be adding them to the Big Ten.
It's going to be fascinating to see that. Obviously, one of the big year for the Big Ten last year. Big year for your old stomping grounds at UCF. They got to host a regional for the first time in program history. Got to win a regional. What was it like for you to see that on selection night? You and I have watched many selection shows together. Um,
Yeah.
what was that like for you watching that going in? Did you feel UCF was going to host? Did you think they were not going to host? I'm fascinated as somebody who literally built the program from scratch. You're
Yeah.
watching this from afar. What was going through your mind on selection night as that? Because UCF was the last team announced to
Yeah.
host.
Yeah. Well, and you were in that selection when we felt we were 16th in the
15.
country
Yeah.
at UCF and should have gone that year and didn't end up at Florida State instead. And
Yeah.
they said that there's too many teams that were in Florida, so they couldn't let that many locations be in Florida. So there's always things that are like not always making sense, but when they finished as strong as they did and had as many wins as they had this year, they could not be kept out. And I was just really, really excited for Cindy and the team to be able to host the first regional. Sorry, our first regional, but hold on. Okay, we're ready. Just be able to host their first regional there and then super regionals. I mean, it was incredible to see how strong they were and what they did with the program. So yeah, it was exciting to watch. We had so many alumni that came back too. That was really neat to see everybody come back, because it was a fight. I mean, you saw all the players, got a chance to see Mackenzie being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and you see all the players coming back, and they all fought for that. You see the past since 2002, those players were on the laid down the foundation for that to happen. It was so exciting to see that it finally happened, and they were all able to come back and be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Bo Malone, some of the players on the current team said they were doing it for the 15 team. Like everybody,
Yeah.
Mackenzie spoke to the team, Shelby Turner had spoken to them. They were there in attendance. The Uvari sisters were there. Samantha McCloskey was there. Did you feel that sense in a way that, in retrospect, that the 15 team kind of paved the way for the future teams to get this opportunity? You have to knock on the door first before, I guess, getting in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's tough because you look at where you're facing. I mean, you've got Florida and Florida State that is hosting every year. So
Yeah.
it's like, will they give a third selection into Florida? That was the biggest challenge we had. When we had one and Florida was hosting, would they give two? At that time, it was like they wouldn't even give two to Florida. So it was neat to see that you got a chance for UCF to finally host. And I was just so excited for the team, so excited for Cindy and the team to make sure that was happening.
It would turn out to be a pretty historical regional. UCF winning the regional over Michigan in what would turn out to be Coach Hutch's last game, which we didn't know at the time, but that's how it turned out. Like, what was it like watching that regional?
Oh, I mean, what can you say? I mean, to see them on their home field and hosting it, of course, it was hard because you had house divided. You want the Big Ten to do well and you want UCF to do well. So it was tough to watch it and who to root for, but it was just the idea that they were having it there and hosting it there it was just exciting to watch.
Yeah, it was crazy to see Mackenzie Otis going crazy in the stands. I did not see that. I never saw that side of her before, but I guess Shelby brings that out of her.
Hey, it was a long time waiting, so I can understand exactly how they felt.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And you mentioned Mackenzie. She just got inducted into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame, which I was a part of. I was invited to go there. She mentioned you in her speech as part of the reason why she got it done. What does it mean to you for her to get inducted? Joining Natalie Land, Allison Kime, and Stephanie Best. More to come. I think we all agree. I think Shelby Turney will probably be next on that list. But what was that? What was that like for you to see now your players that you coached starting to get inducted into the Hall of Fame at a program you helped build?
Oh, about time.
That's right.
No, it's neat to see. I mean, they worked so hard to build UCF and so hard to be able to get recognized throughout top 25 in the country. I mean, we fought hard to be able to do that. When we first started, you look at the Stephanie's first team, and we're in vans heading down to the summer league team, I don't know what they call it, the Rebel Games at that time. It was in Orlando.
Yeah.
And we're in vans and we're beating everybody at the Rebel Games and nobody knows who we are. They think we're University of California, Fullerton, or University of California, Fresno. And in fact, it was Sarah, the Iowa girl that I had down there. She was like, I told her, I said, nobody knows who we are. We need to come up with t-shirts. We need to let them know who we are because, this is crazy. So she goes, Coach, I've got it. She goes, we need a shirt that says, we may be new, but we beat you. And so that was the slogan the very first year, is like, we had kind of had a chip on our shoulder from the very first year, is like, we got to show them who we are. UCF is Florida, UCF is Central Florida, and we're proud of that. And, we're proud of the Knights and being able to go up against some top team, beating Florida at home and beating Alabama in their own tournament, and showing people that we can compete against these top 25 teams in the country. It was a big thing, so it was so neat to be able to see that group and to come back and to see Stephanie being inducted as the first one to get in, which so deserving. She broke the home run record in the NCAA her senior year. To see them actually competing, talk about Mackenzie and Shelby, having the lowest ERA as two teams in one, two pitchers in one team. They had, as the two pitchers, had the lowest ERA in the country. To see that and to see them finally being recognized for that is exciting. There's a lot of players that are part of UCF and the growth at UCF that is so deserving of that Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I know you're proud. You're glad how Coach Ball Malone's handled the program, and I think I've told you this story off the air, but I'll mention it on the air. I've told her this because I didn't realize this until she got here. 1999, maybe one of your best teams. You've told me the Texas Tech team you had back then, Palo Alto Regional. You felt like one win away from the World Series. Yeah. Among the teams you ran into, there was a small school in California named Pacific. And I remember you would tell me the stories when we'd be traveling back in the days, how that game was frustrating. You won 1-0, but this pitcher for Pacific frustrated you, and messed up your offense for the rest of the tournament. You ended up losing, I think, to Fresno in the regional final.
Yep.
That pitcher turned out to be Sydney Ball Malone. I mean, what a small world that is, that you had to run through her, face her in a regional back in 1990. That was your last regional at Texas Tech. You would go on to leave to start the UCF program months later after that. It's kind of wild, like full circle. It's like a destiny thing there.
Yeah, it really, well, it tells you two things. It tells you how small our softball community is. And you're aging me, so thank you, Eric. Appreciate that.
Aging you. I've heard this story of that regional from her, from you, from Coach Rittman, who's the one that brought this to my attention. Who's obviously was at Stanford at the time, is now at Clemson. Coach Cozy at Pacific has told me this story. I mean, it's kind of a wild regional. Like, there should be a documentary on that regional. Like, Lonnie Alameda was an assistant, I believe, at Stanford at the time. Heather Tarr at Pacific, right?
And she interviewed for a job at Texas Tech is how I got to know her.
That's
we were
right.
trying to hire her, and she took the job at Stanford. Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy, because you would tell me about, I've heard this story from you in the regionals for years. And it's just kind of wild how everything played out. It's just, anyway.
But see, it's destiny. It's destiny that she's finally getting that regional at UCF. It was destiny.
There you go. There you go. Last couple things. Big Ten. What's the status of instant replay as far as the Big Ten's concerned?
We're trying to get it into all of our stadiums. The issue comes to who runs it. Trying to figure out if you have the staffing to be able to, the umpires to be able to decide on the calls. So it's more of a staffing issue than anything else right now. I think most of our stadiums have the videos to be able to do most of what they need to do. But a lot of the instant replay is coming from like the ESPN, like they'll bring in the cameras, they'll have the people in place. And that's why it's able, like SEC is able to do such a good job of having all covered. But we're working to make sure that we can get the Big Ten covered on that. Right now, we don't.
Okay, because you had them for the conference tournament. I remember that.
Right.
But still in work in progress to have it during conference series.
Yeah.
Because that was obviously showcased in the NCAA tournament. And I know you've been in favor of replay for a while.
Yeah. And it was tough. I mean, we talked with Northwestern, they said the biggest thing was you just felt like you didn't have it enough in the regular season, that when you got to regionals, you weren't prepared to know how to request an instant replay. You didn't know the process, where these other teams were doing it all season long. So it was much more comfortable for them. So we talked as coaches. We had our Big Ten coaches meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how can we make this happen. We need this to be a part of it. So when we do go to regionals, we're comfortable with it. We feel like we've already done it a few times. Yeah. I think we had one instant replay this last year. One. That was at Iowa State.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only time we had an instant replay all season long.
Well, and that's tricky because you're not used to it, so you're not like, whereas other coaches are used to it. If you've had replay most of the season, we had Coach Trout on, and she got ejected in the Big Ten tournament in part because there was a mistranslation as far as some of the rules that goes with replay and what you could say.
You could ask. Yeah.
Right. Right.
You can get kicked out for asking the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And she like, well, we don't know. We didn't have replay during the season. So like it's I do hope that gets kind of resolved in some ways there, because I do think that it's weird to have certain coaches and certain conferences have that and then others don't, because everybody has it once you get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's one of our arguments that we had. We need to find a way to be able to put it into all of our Big Ten games instead of just the championship. Because it is. I mean, it's an advantage. I mean, if you know what calls to be looking for and be able to have a play being turned on your side, I mean, that's fantastic to be able to have that opportunity.
Last thing, obviously, as you go through this Big Four Classic and the rest of your fall ball schedule, before you know it, you'll be in February to start the season in Boca. What are some of the? Don't remind me. I'm the same way. What is some of the keys for your team to accomplish between now and then to have success during the season and accomplish your internal goals?
Good question. I think right now we're trying to find what that is. Your pitching is 80% of the game. So you've got to have a pitching staff that can keep you in games. I think our offense will be there. I think this is the first year in a long time that we have a very strong offensive set. Our hitters are doing just an incredible job right now of doing the little things right, getting the productive outs, moving runners, doing the little things right. But it's like being able to find probably those top 3-4 pitchers that can really lock down those games for us. We're going to be pitching as a staff, which, if you look across the country, most programs have a staff of pitchers. They'll pitch 3 or 4 in a game. So we're looking kind of as a staff right now and to see who's going to kind of step up and be able to the 4 innings or 5 innings for us later down the road. And then defensively, I mean, I feel like, the big thing I think you've seen in every program we've had that I've ever coached is defense is always strong. We're going to be solid defensively. Defense wins the championships, so we got to make sure that we have that solid. So defense is going to be solid, and it's just really working on our pitching staff, make sure we have a solid 1, 2, 3.
When you talk about the pitching staff and go by staff, do you feel like you'll have defined roles? Is that something that'll just play itself out during the season? What would you prefer from a staff standpoint, to have certain people have their roles defined, or is it one of those where you go game by game, week by week, let it evolve as the season goes on?
Yeah, I think the early games, you have to let it evolve, kind of see who's going to step up. A lot of it is endurance, who can handle going 5 innings, who can look different after 5 innings. If you got 1 or 2 pitchers that can do that, then, they'll be able to take 1 or 2 games for us. And then you could do a staff on the next game. But I think when you look down softball, kind of the transition now is becoming more like baseball. Yeah. You do kind of have a staff. You have an opener, you have a middle, and you have a closer. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at right now, is to who's going to be filling in those holes, who likes to start. Some of our pitchers don't even like to start. They don't mind coming in, and bases are loaded and Sure. They can settle in, but they don't want to have the first pitch, which is crazy. So it's finding out what's most comfortable for them and being able to see where their role will be. But I mean, ideally, you want a pitcher that can dominate. You want a pitcher that can shut people down and go 2 games back to back. You've seen that in the World Series. Some of the best teams have that 1 or 2 punch. Not everybody has that ability to find that one pitcher that can shut it down. So that's when your staff will have to come in. But I'm excited to see where our pitchers are gonna go, because I think they're really stepping up. They're doing such a wonderful job. Every week they're getting better. Every week they're getting more confident, and it's going to be interesting to see how they come into the spring, because I think they're all hungry right now.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. A lot of competition too internally, which makes the better out of it. I mean, we've talked about McKenzie and Shelby and all the great pitchers you had. Yet they pushed each other. That was part of the competition. I mean, I was at some of those practices. It got a little intense. It was a little harder at the practice in some of those games there.
Yeah, well, you hope it is. You want to be harder at practice and make the game seem easy. That's your ultimate goal. But yeah, those two together, the 1-2 punch of those two had was something I don't know if I'll ever see again. They were incredible.
Yeah, no doubt. But we look forward to seeing your staff and your team get played. Obviously, the Big Four Classic this weekend at Iowa should be a fun event, fun weekend there. And then obviously we'll see your team throughout the season, Coach. Always a pleasure to do this. You know, we've done this now 15 years. We're going on 15.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, I need to do a shout out
Go.
to Casey Zerby.
There you go.
Because you know, I was listening to Mackenzie's speech, and I wish I'd been able to get there with our scrimmage and recruits on campus. And a game that Saturday, I wasn't able to get out to see that, and I would have done anything if they had given us enough notice. I would have changed my entire fall so I could have been there for her, because that, you know, I'm so proud of what she's accomplished, but all of them have accomplished. But Casey, with what Casey has done, the pictures that we had at UCF. You know, she has to be the kudos to getting those kids ready. She's really remarkable. And if she ever has a picture that she wants me to look at again, I will. I don't even have to look at them. You just tell her that they've got a scholarship, because she does an incredible job with them. But yeah, so yeah, it's been exciting. It's great to see them all inducted in the Hall of Fame. I'm excited about this season. It's very young staff still again this year, but they're hungry and they're ready to go.
Yeah, Casey was at the Hall of Fame activity, so that was pretty cool to see her there, and I'm sure she'll take the shout out really well on that. Should be a lot of fun, and like I said, always a pleasure talking. We've done this now 15 years. I was a student when we started this.
Yeah, you have to tell that story sometime about how we had like BYOC bring your own chair to our softball games.
Oh wow, yeah, you're going way back there.
Yeah, when we started there, and it was your radio crew that started
right.
and passed it down from year to year to where we always had student radio guys that had a table out there, had a tent out there, was at every one of our games, and we're so fortunate that you wanted to stick with us. So thank you, Eric, for sticking with us.
Appreciate it.
Keeping softball alive on these podcasts is really cool.
We try our best, and obviously you're a big part of that, Coach. Always great to talk to you. We'll talk soon. I know we'll cross paths here when you get down to Florida during the season.
Sounds great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time.